And welcome everyone who's on the call so far. If you have the opportunity to, if you can, if you're not sitting in your car, if you could put your name and your site location in the chat, that's helpful for attendance. And thank you. And I just got a message from Tim that he has been called into an urgent meeting this morning at 10. He's going to try to join us as quickly as he can, but I think we're not going to wait for him. And the first thing on the agenda was to meet him and introduce him to you guys anyway. So if he joins, fantastic. And if not, that's okay. We've got stuff to talk about. So before we start, I like to just really quickly kind of go around the group, and if you could say who you are, where you're from, and maybe how long you've been doing the 21st Century Grant. I know some of us are newer than others. Some of us are just part of a new cohort and have been doing this for a while. Anyway, let's start with Keely. Would you mind starting?
I don't mind. I'm Keely Schaffner, and I'm with Fort Madison Community Schools. And this is our second year as a 21st century site. And I will go ahead and pass it on to Wes.
You, Keely.
All right, I'm Wes McGraw. I'm at Centrally right next to Keeley's school. We're in the same county, out in the middle of nowhere, kind of. And this is our second year doing the 21st Century Grant. And I'll pass it on to Joe.
Good morning, Joe Maloney. I'm in Dubuque at Dubuque Community School District. So this is my 6th year as our activities director for the district that also oversees our after-school programming with our LEAP program that's funded through the 21st Century Grant. So this is we just started a new cycle, so we're on year 6 since I've been here of receiving after-school grant dollars.
Terrific.
All right, Claudia, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I pulled over to a parking lot. This is my first year as the program coordinator for Des Moines Public Schools 21st Century Program. But Heidi, how many years has Des Moines been part of the grant? It's been a lot.
Oh my gosh. Listen, I started in 2007. So,
Okay.
yeah, long time.
Yes.
And I want to, before we pass it on to the next person, I just want to apologize. I have a brand new puppy and I am teaching her to stay in her kennel while I'm on a meeting. So if you see me ducking down and back up, that's what I'm doing. Anyway, and so I'll just introduce myself too. I'm Heidi Brown, director of the Iowa After School Alliance. But like Claudia mentioned before that, I was at Des Moines Public Schools coordinating their 21st Century grants for 17 years. And that makes me really able to help you with all of your questions about 21st century. So let's pass it to Brian.
I'm Brian Burton. I am with the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Cedar Valley in Waterloo, Iowa. And we have been on 21st Century since I've been here 2017, but I think a few years before that also.
Terrific.
And we have, I think, 3 cohorts or 2 cohorts right now that we're working with.
Fantastic. And who did we miss? Andrea, is that you? Are you on?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Andrea Ryder, and I am in my 4th year doing a 21st century after school program at Easton Valley in Miles, Iowa.
Fantastic.
So, another small town.
Okay, thank you. So it seems like we've got a real mix of brand new in the second year and then a little bit more seasoned. And so before we keep going, everyone of course is welcome to stay on. But if you are someone that's been through this cycle of new grantees meetings for year in and year out, they kind of stay the same. as far as what we go through month by month. So you are certainly welcome to stay in the new grantees and staff transition committees, or if there's somebody else on your staff that's newer, or you're really wanting to help them move into more of a leadership role, this is a great committee for them to be on as well. Just putting that out there, and then also for people who are going to watch this video moving forward. All right, so before we move on to our topic of conversation today, are there any questions or any concerns, or I guess anybody want anything around, especially around local evaluation, which I think pretty much everyone has put in, or are, really actively working on right now. Any questions, concerns, or needs around local evaluation? Or big ahas that have happened this year that you'd like to share with everyone else, because believe me, they want to hear it.
Heidi, I guess one of the questions that I have is, when we have the two reporting times on the site with our ARP data and stuff like
Yeah.
that. There's just a lot of overlap between that and then what we're providing on our local evaluations.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're duplicating, and it's not like the local evaluation obviously is can be a more lengthy process than the other part, but I'm always looking for ways to kind of cut some things out of the work that has to be done. And that seems like something, but it's probably something that's just a mandatory thing that we just have to do in both places. And it is what it is.
Yeah, you're kind of right there for sure. I mean, there is definitely overlap in what you're collecting. What goes into the local evaluation should match with what you put in on your APR. Now, just so you know, that local evaluation is just a statewide evaluation, and not every state does that, or does it, I guess, to the extent that Iowa does. That was something that Vic was really wanted and was really proud of, and it's a wonderful thing that Iowa puts out. The APR is just for your federal reporting data. So that's kind of you probably already knew that, but for those of you maybe that didn't, that's the difference. And I can't imagine that there would be a time that we wouldn't continue to do the statewide local evaluation. So the other thing is, I don't know if you have the data collection document that the evaluation committee has created. Maybe you already do. That seems to make it a little bit easier for folks, but you're 100% right. There's definitely duplicative data going back and forth. And you're also right. I don't really see that change. I wouldn't see that changing with any new person at the department.
Perfect. That's what I assumed. And that's, yeah, no worries. I just thought I'd throw it out there as maybe
Yeah.
there's a possibility.
Yeah. Do you have your local evaluator also entering your APR data, or do you do that yourself?
Yeah, I do that for our district.
Okay. I mean, that's something, I don't know what the budget for evaluation for your specific site looks like, but that's always something that you could farm out with your evaluation dollars too. Anybody else have questions about that?
I just have a piece of advice, and I think that it probably is different in other years. So when it was our first year last year,
Mhm.
and we didn't have meetings all fall and spring because we didn't have the Iowa After School Alliance
Right.
connection.
Right.
And so it was like, I thought that I tracked really well, but I still, when I go to do this data entry, I have data I can't collect anymore because I have kids who transferred out of our school district and I don't have access to any of their information anymore. And so it was a little frustrating that we have probably like 16 of our students who are no longer Fort Madison students. And they were kids who were receiving tutoring services and had
Okay.
at-risk statuses, but I can't tell you whether or not they improved because I can't run their reports from last year to see what their spring results were.
Oh, shoot.
So I think that like it's probably better this year so far from what everything I've seen. It's just that last year there wasn't a lot of support on new grantees on what they needed to be tracking and how to track it. And I thought that I was like pulling stuff and had like good ways of like tracking all the information I needed. And so I knew what we did in hours and all of that was tracked really well. But as far as like my student data, I didn't realize the extent of that evaluation and how much data was going to be needed. So like my local evaluator's almost done and we had to do an extension because we couldn't find certain data points.
Mm.
But part of that is that there's like, I mean, I'll just tell you, our evaluation doesn't look great because they're like, hey, these are all the things that in the next year you need to work on because you
Sure.
didn't do it this year. And so I don't know if maybe we need to look at as a group of 21st century recipients, maybe figuring out a good way to like have some type of mentor mentee conversation with our new grantees within like someone who's more seasoned with doing 21st century sites because there's a lot of things that are like the day-to-day type uh, things that I do as a director that I didn't realize that there was also some administrative things that needed to be done behind the scenes. And I guess it would have been good to have the heads up that I didn't necessarily know I needed.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Keely. Just out of curiosity, do you guys use a data collection software at all, or are you doing it all by hand?
So we use easy reports for tracking what our students do and the amount of hours that they're in the program and for check-in, check-out, all of those things. But our school district did not want me to put academics into the easy report software.
Fair
So
enough.
I track all of that by hand, looking up each of our 190 students. So
Oh,
yeah.
oh, Keely. And your district is probably small enough that you don't have someone that can get that to you at the drop of a hat, huh? Yeah, that's rough.
But it doesn't take as long as you might think because like I really like statistics and data.
Yeah,
So, like
yeah.
I have a system. I just have to like have the time carved out. And luckily, Christmas break, I worked and other people didn't. So I had a good amount of time to carve out that extra data that I was missing.
Okay, okay. That's great. And thank you for saying that about I mean, kind of a roundabout way, but you're right. Just for background information for some people, the Department of Ed did not renew the contract with Iowa After School Alliance for, I believe it was 8 or 9 months last year. So there was a nice big chunk of time that people were kind of out there without the additional support of the Alliance. And without the support of the website and all of the data that's on there and all that kind of jazz. So you're right. Hopefully this year will be much better, but I want to say too, Keely, and they probably already are, but make sure that your evaluator is at least noting those students that you served. I mean, they can put an asterisk next to that and say, we might not have academic data, but we know that they were here 30 days. We know who they were, all that kind of jazz. You're nodding, so you're doing that. Good. All right. What other questions about local evaluations, if any, or about data collection? Let me ask you this, and maybe you do have questions, we can come back to that, but what are people's thoughts and feelings regarding a statewide data collection service? Um, no reason to think that we would have this anytime soon, but it's definitely an idea that has been kicked around before that potentially the state could be the one paying for and supplying that data collection service, whether it's Easy Reports or City Span, which is what Des Moines Public Schools uses, and I know a few other sites use. What are your thoughts and feelings about potentially having that data being able to be the idea would be then that there would be support, training, PD, help around the system. You'd still be able to get in, of course, and enter all your own data and see your own data and be a super user in that system. but everybody's would be the same. All of the reports for all of the school districts in the grant cohorts would be the same. I don't know, without giving away how I feel about it, what are your thoughts and opinions? Especially from I guess those of you who have done this multiple years.
So this is Brian. Not being a school district, we do it a little bit differently.
Okay.
We have our own software that we pull all of our reports off of, and then we have a local evaluator that has access into the schools for the things that we need. So
Mhm.
that might be something that person would use, but for our local data,
Mhm.
we have our own systems,
Okay.
and it's proprietary to Boys and Girls Club. So
Got it.
we're, it's not something that we can even offer out.
Understand. Okay, so it's a software that all the Boys and Girls Clubs use, and then you pull the attendance, all that kind of data, and probably
Mhm.
give it to your school district that then shares academic data based on ID numbers or something like that, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have strong opinions or thoughts about why that would or wouldn't work? All right. Well, in that case, let's move on to our agenda. Okay. So the first agenda item was to meet Tim, Glenn, and I don't know if that's going to happen this morning or not, but that's okay. As most or all of you know, Vic is done. He's retired, and Tim has taken over in the interim at the Department of Ed. They have actually posted Vic's position is open. So if you know of anyone in the area, or I guess it doesn't even have to be in the metro area, it could be anywhere in the state that would be interested in that position, I would encourage you to have them put in an application because I know they're looking for the best person, and I think they're going to keep it open for a while. So, but we'll have Tim for a while, and he is terrific, and I think that we're just going to be just fine until they fill that position permanently. Okay. The main thing we wanted to talk about today is the budget management and budget guidelines. And what I wanted to share with you all is this document, which could be very useful to you, something that you might want to print or stick on your bulletin board by your desk. It's the Guide to Iowa Program Budgets. And many of our grantees have issues spending down different categories of their budget. So it's really just something to help you monitor and help you make sure that you're meeting those kind of quarterly deadlines and the questions you might ask yourself and might ask your finance person if you have one, or just yourself if like Keely, you are the finance person and the data person and the evaluation person and the and the person that gets the snacks, I would imagine, and all of that kind of stuff. Um, anyway, so right now, we are currently in quarter 3. So what you're going to want to be thinking about is how close are you to the budget that you submitted? Is it time to start thinking about line item adjustments? Obviously, these still say Vic. We'll get that updated to whoever the new person is, when that happens. But in the meantime, you're welcome to talk to Tim, and you, of course, are able to talk to me, although I'll probably end up referring you to Tim at the department with budget questions. But in quarter 3, we're looking at having spent hopefully around 50% of the budget so far. If there are lines that are completely unspent, now is absolutely the time to be making a plan for what you're going to do with those funds. What you don't want to do is get into quarter 4 and into May and find that, oh no, I haven't spent any of my PD dollars yet. What am I going to do with these funds that cannot be adjusted? So, are there line items in your budget that you know for sure you're not going to be able to spend down? Here's an example, transportation. There are times when you've allocated a certain amount of money for transportation because you thought, things were going to go one way, or maybe it's a brand new grant and you didn't know really. It was just an educated guess. Now you're finding in quarter 3 that, in fact, transportation is much less expensive than you thought it was going to be, or perhaps only a small sliver of your students actually ended up needing busing. And now you're going to have a bunch of money left in there. Now's the time that you're going to want to ask for those line item adjustments. You can make adjustments of up to 10% without any kind of formal documentation. And I say that because that was Vic's rule. I imagine that will still be the same rule with Tim. I can't imagine that he would change that. That would just need from you an email. Hey, we need to move 10% of this budget, whatever that might be, into this other category. We're going to move it into materials. We're going to move it into personnel, whatever. Here's the justification for that. And then you would get an email back that says, yes, that's approved. And that's all the documentation you would need for up to 10% of that budget line. If you want to move more than that, then you need to do kind of a formal line item adjustment to be approved by the Iowa Department of Ed. And that's going to be more of a conversation that you'll want to have with Tim. Vic always preferred to do those towards the end of the grant. So we're looking at like April and May. But it's definitely something that you're going to want to have in mind. So what questions, if any, do you have about line item adjustments, the percentages? There are line items that cannot be adjusted. Professional development is one of them, is potentially the only one. Professional development needs to be spent on professional development, and a minimum of 8% of your 21st century budget must be spent on professional development. Any questions about that? Has anyone run into any issues regarding getting these budgets spent down properly? What are the issues? Because other people are probably having them too. What are the things that you've done to mitigate those? Or conversely, are you finding that you're blowing through it too fast? And if so, what are the things that you're doing to mitigate that issue?
We this year are struggling more than other years on our staffing. I don't know why we're spending so much more when we actually have less people on the clock. So, because we went from 2 sites to 1 site when our elementary schools combined to one. And so I don't know if they changed our staff's, like school day staff's contract times where they now work more hours. So I have more people in overtime. But I'm not sure what's happening, but I can tell you that we are spending way more than we're supposed to be. So I'm a smidgen bit concerned about our staffing budget, but our school district said that, I just need to keep looking at the people who are in overtime and scheduling them for as little amount of overtime as I can accomplish. We don't have a ban on overtime by any means.
Mhm.
And I have a good team, and I didn't have almost any turnover. And I guess a struggle that I'm having is that I have a lot of overtime. I know it's hurting my budget. I have 6 high school seniors who want to work for us, who would not be in overtime, who I know, would be for the budget a better suit. And I haven't hired them on because I haven't posted for a job. They all probably would be good employees, but I just struggle with making that managerial decision to cut back on people who are dedicated and qualified for their jobs to replace them with people who are less expensive, even if the younger students, the high school students, might they could be great employees too if given a chance. So I have a little moral dilemma in my managerial life right now as I
Mhm.
look at things. So we're going to look at quarter 2 here in the next week before we, do our submissions and
Mhm.
see whether or not we really need to make a different decision officially to move that direction. But it sits heavy on me. So if other people have advice on that one, I'll take it, even if it's not what I want to hear.
A little wait time just in case anybody wants to jump in there and either commiserate or talk to Keely about things that she could do. Keely, let me ask you this. Are your teachers or your associates or whomever are getting the overtime, are they working the full afternoon shift with you, or have you explored the idea of potentially having them do an hour and then having your high school kids come in and finish out the day, that kind of thing?
So we run from 3:20 to 5:30.
Okay,
And our teachers, they don't hop on till 3:45 or 4 o'clock, and most
got
of them
it.
are off at like 5, and they're not in overtime, but they make the same wage as our associates who are in leading positions or do tutoring that
Mhm.
would be in overtime, if that makes sense.
It
Uh,
does.
so what I try to do is I try to have the people who hop on right at like 3:20, 3:30 and are in like the lead type role. I have those people, their end time suggested is like 5 o'clock, 5:15, because our number of kids who are still there at that point in time have gone down. And I have some people who are really good about abiding by that. And I have a couple that really don't want to clock out. So, but that's the solution I've been doing, is that I've been writing, instead of everybody gets to stay on from when their contract time with the school day ends until 5:30, I have made it very clear that to most people that they need to be off at their suggested time. And now, like, if for some reason they still have 15 kids and they're doing an activity and they still need their rotations all the way through, because I don't want anything to negatively affect program, that the understanding is that if you are working and you're working with a kid and you are in the groove, stay in the groove.
Yeah.
But I think it's helped. That's why we're going to look at where quarter 2 ends up landing, because we had the gap, with Christmas. So that should be a short month. October was very long.
Yeah.
And then November wasn't all that much shorter. So we'll
Yeah.
see kind of where everything falls. But yeah, I did change clock in, clock out times to see
Good.
if that could help. I don't have a lot of interest in coming in for like partial times,
Mhm.
other than like the people who are like um teachers who are doing tutoring who are like, oh, I can't get there till 4:30, or they're like, I want to get off at 4:30. And I've been like, with them, I'm very much like, you have a niche intervention role within the program. And so their time kind of is whatever it needs to be. And none of them stay till 5:30.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I am going to share this page of the budget document, and I want you guys to go through this on your own, of course. We're not looking at every single line, but this I wanted to bring up because I think I just told you something wrong and I want to make sure I clarify that. Professional development, I think I said, was a minimum of 8%. It's a minimum of 5%. And your administrative costs is a limit of 8%. So you can't spend any more than 8% on administrative costs. So this is kind of just a general idea of what your budget could potentially look like. Personnel is usually between 60 and 70% of the program budget. So it's the majority, it's the largest chunk. And, you know, there are, if you're not there and you need to be, and you need to move some things over, that's something that you want to think of doing. Okay. All right. Is there anyone that's braiding funding or leveraging different funds from their district, like Title I funds or other types of I don't know, endowments or anything like that, that can speak a little bit to how you're doing that and what the benefits are? Who's collaborating with their district to spend Title I funds to help serve kids after school or in the summertime?
We don't utilize, well, I think maybe we do. So we also receive dollars from our, we have 3 middle schools here in Dubuque. 2 of them fit the bill for the 21st century grant. So that leaves our third one who does not have the same type of programming available to them based on their free and reduced numbers. So we do partner with our Foundation for Dubuque Public Schools to receive funds to help provide the same types of services that our other 2 schools would receive, our other students at those schools. Additionally, I think we do use some Title I funds for a summer reading program for some of our younger students that we run during the month of July every year. So I think we tap into some Title I funding for that, but that's separate from the 21st Century Grant that we run for our middle school after school programs during the school year.
Hey, this is Brian again. Boys and Girls Club, you know, the 21st century is about 20% of our budget. So the rest is private donations, corporate donations, foundations. So a majority of our program is not funded by 21st century.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the final pieces of our grant agenda. Like I said, I will share this budget management document with everyone. It's of course on the website too. I hope that you have the 21st century, the Iowa 21st century website bookmarked on your computer, where you're going there to look for all of the different worksheets and recordings about different things, everything that you could potentially need as you're managing and running your program. And so finally, to wrap us up here today, I know we're not going to stay on for the whole hour, and that's okay, but I want to share a few kind of things that are happening with the Iowa After School Alliance that can benefit you. You know what, before I do that, does anybody else have any other questions regarding budget or thoughts or anything having to do with money, budgets, amendments, carryovers, anything like that at this point? Now is certainly the time for you to be looking at it, not in May. Let you all know that. Okay. Well, in that case, I want to just share a few things coming up with Iowa After School Alliance then that could be really beneficial for you and your staff. This year, again, we are rolling out our PD training series. Folks can receive childcare hours for those of you who are certified childcare providers. It's our Thrive Together PD series. The registration link is here in the agenda, and I'll send it out in the summary as well. Our very first one is about adult SEL. It's at the end of January 20, hang on a second. It's January 29, 10 a.m. You can register as many people as you want. It's completely free through the Iowa After School Alliance, and anybody is welcome to join. And it's going to be good. Also, I would ask if you haven't already done so to sign our pledge of support for after school programs. Anybody coming today on the Hill this year? Oh, Brian is? Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we will be there. I think we're going to be 3 or 4 people from the clubs.
Right on. That's great. Well, we're looking forward to a really good day on the Hill this year. It is January 23rd. We will be at the Capitol in the afternoon from 12:30 to 4 o'clock. If you can come, we would love to have you there. You don't have to stay the whole time. You could come for just a little while. Could speak to a legislator. You can stand at our table, advocate for after school programs for Iowa youth. And if you're there and afterward you want to come and have a margarita or an iced tea with us for Vic's retirement celebration, we would love to have you. And I know he'd be tickled to see everyone. However, there are a couple things that you can do, whether you're coming or whether you're not coming, that can really support after school programs in Iowa. And that is sign the pledge of support for after school programs. I think that I could probably put the link in the chat right now. I wonder if I can do that. I bet I can. Hang on just a second here. It just takes a couple of moments for you to click on that link, put your name and your organization, and add it to the list of organizations that are supporting after school programs in Iowa. That's something that we'll be sharing with legislators and the governor at our day on the Hill and beyond. And also, if you are not able to make it to the day on the Hill, or if you are coming and you just want to have something really cool about your program that Adriana is putting together, there's a program showcase that she's working on. This is going to ask you lots of different questions, not lots, but some different questions about your program and what you offer for kids. It's going to ask you to submit a few pictures, which you should have, just at your fingertips because of the local evaluation that you just did. And then she's going to put together some really beautiful, like couple page showcase documents about your program and what you do, and make it look really cool, and have those available for folks to look through when they come to the table at Day on the Hill. And then we're also going to be posting those on our website too, as kind of a program showcase statewide. So I would love for you to take the time to do that and, brag on your program a little bit, brag on your staff, your kids, and what you do and what you offer, and let us make it look really great and give you back something that you can share, share with everybody. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. We're going to wrap up here. I'm going to turn off the recording.